The trucker had seen trouble before, but this was different. 5 masked thugs, armed and ready, surrounded his rig at a lonely gas station. They thought he was an easy target. But as their leader stepped closer, the trucker's fingers slid toward the glove box, because they had no idea who they were dealing with. If you love stories about tough truckers, bad guys getting what they deserve, and adrenaline-fueled showdowns, then hit that subscribe button now. Don't miss the next wild ride. Join us today. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a burnt orange glow over the dusty highway. The heat shimmered off the pavement in waves, and the hum of idling diesel engines mixed with the occasional honk from impatient truckers fueling up at the roadside gas station. It was the last stop for miles. A rundown spot with flickering neon lights, a cracked Coca-Cola sign, and a couple of stray dogs lounging beneath the shade of a long-abandoned pickup. The place reeked of motor oil, gasoline, and sun-baked asphalt. Inside the small convenience store, an old radio crackled with static, playing an old country tune. The bored cashier, a scrawny teenager chewing gum, barely looked up as the truckers came and went. It was a stopover where nobody asked questions, a place where road warriors refueled, grabbed a cup of weak coffee, and went on their way. But something was off. At the far end of the lot, a massive 18-wheeler stood alone near Pump 6. It wasn't just any truck. It was a black Peterbilt 379, rugged, worn from years on the road, but still a beast. The chrome grille gleamed under the setting sun, and dust clung to its side like scars from past battles. The truck's driver, a man in his early 50s, sat inside the cab, sipping a steaming cup of coffee. His gray-streaked beard and weathered hands told a story of hard years on the road. His deep-set eyes scanned the rearview mirror with the awareness of a man who'd seen trouble before. Then came the moment that set everything in motion. A black SUV rolled into the station, moving too slow, too calculated. The kind of slow that made veteran truckers uneasy. Behind it, another car pulled in, a dark sedan with tinted windows. No plates. The engines stayed running, a low growl filling the lot. The cashier inside the store looked up, suddenly alert, as 4 masked figures stepped out. Black tactical vests, heavy boots, each of them carrying. They weren't here for snacks. The lead thug, a man built like a bull, locked eyes with the trucker through the windshield. The gang moved in slow, spreading out, cutting off any escape routes. A few truckers at the far end of the lot noticed, shifting uncomfortably, but no one moved. No one wanted to be next. The trucker calmly set his coffee down. His right hand drifted toward the glove box. Inside, something that would turn this ambush into a regret-filled mistake. The lead thug smirked. He had no idea what kind of man he was messing with. The gang leader took a step closer, his boots crunching against the gravel. His men spread out, forming a loose semicircle around the truck. Each one had their hands resting near their weapons, just enough to send a message. The parking lot, once just another stop along the endless stretch of highway, had now turned into a powder keg ready to blow. Inside the truck, the veteran driver sat still, his hands resting on the wheel. His breathing was calm, measured. He had seen situations like this before. Years of hauling loads through dangerous territory had taught him one thing. Trouble always looked the same. "Hey, old man!" the leader called out, his voice carrying over the low rumble of idling engines. "You got yourself some expensive cargo in there, don't you?" The trucker didn't answer, didn't even blink. The thug chuckled, flashing a yellow-toothed grin at his crew. "Oh, I see how it is. Tough guy, huh?" He tapped on the truck's hood with the barrel of his pistol. Another one of the masked men moved to the passenger side, yanking on the door handle. Locked. The leader sighed dramatically. "Come on, man, don't make this hard." He motioned to one of his men. "Open it up." One of the thugs pulled a crowbar from his belt and wedged it into the door frame. The trucker tightened his grip on the wheel. He could already see how this would play out. The second thug, still by the passenger side, pulled out a knife, slamming the hilt against the glass. "Ain't no reason to drag this out, old man. Step out, hand over the keys, and maybe, we let you keep your teeth." Still, the trucker said nothing. The leader's grin faded. He pulled back his jacket, flashing the gun at his hip. "Don't make me ask again." For the first time, the trucker moved. Slowly, deliberately. His right hand left the wheel and drifted toward the glove box. The leader stiffened, raising his gun. His crew followed, all weapons trained on the cab. "You move 1 more inch, and I'll—" Click. The glove box popped open. Inside, the truck driver's real insurance policy sat waiting. The gang leader's smirk vanished. The trucker's fingers curled around the cold steel inside the glove box. The gang leader's smirk had disappeared, replaced by a flash of hesitation. "Hold it right there!" he barked, stepping back a half step. The other thugs tensed, gripping their weapons tighter. But the trucker? He was calm. He had been in worse situations, and he knew one thing. Hesitation was deadly. In a blur, he moved. The gang leader barely had time to react before the trucker's hand shot forward. A deafening boom shattered the silence of the parking lot. Not a gunshot. A flashbang. The small, compact grenade tumbled to the pavement, landing at the feet of the masked thugs. For a brief moment, everything stood still. Then a blinding white flash erupted, followed by an eardrum-shattering explosion. The gang screamed. One thug staggered back, clutching his face, eyes burning. Another dropped his gun, disoriented, stumbling into the side of the truck. The leader, caught in the blast, stumbled to his knees, his ears ringing. The trucker wasn't wasting time. He threw the door open. In a single, swift motion, he grabbed the closest thug by the collar and yanked him forward, slamming his head into the truck's steel frame. The man collapsed instantly. Another thug, still reeling from the flashbang, blindly swung a crowbar. The trucker sidestepped, grabbed the thug's wrist, and twisted. A sickening pop followed. The crowbar clattered to the ground. The gang leader fought to regain his senses, shaking his head as he fumbled for his pistol. His eyes cleared just in time to see the trucker standing over him. The fight was over before it even started. The trucker bent down, grabbed the gang leader's weapon, and tossed it into the distance. Then, with the same deadly calm he had shown from the start, he reached down, grabbed the gang leader by the collar, and yanked him up to eye level. "You made a mistake," the trucker growled. "Now you're gonna pay for it." The gang leader's face paled. The trucker wasn't done yet. Because now, it was time to finish this. The gang leader froze in the trucker's grip. His men were either groaning on the ground or scrambling to recover. The entire ambush had gone sideways in a matter of seconds. But that wasn't the worst part. Because as the trucker tightened his grip, pulling the gang leader up to meet his eyes, the thug saw something he hadn't noticed before. A patch. Worn, faded, but still visible on the inside of the trucker's leather jacket. It was an old military insignia. Not just any insignia. A Special Forces emblem. The gang leader's stomach dropped. "You have no idea who you just messed with," the trucker muttered, voice low and steady. "Do you?" The leader swallowed hard. His mind was racing now, trying to remember all the whispers he'd heard over the years about a certain trucker, one who had been in the shadows before he ever hit the highways. Some said he was ex-special ops. Others said he had been a ghost, one of those guys who went into places and made entire groups disappear. Most people thought it was just a myth. But as he looked into the trucker's eyes, the gang leader knew the truth. It was him, and now he and his crew were screwed. The trucker smirked. "You don't look so tough anymore." The gang leader tried to pull free, but the trucker's grip was ironclad. He was done playing games. He turned to the nearest thug, still disoriented from the flashbang. One swift kick, and the man went down again, knocking his own gun out of reach. Then he dragged the gang leader over to the truck, slamming him against the side. "You boys like stealing from truckers," the trucker growled. "You think we're easy marks?" The leader stammered, but before he could answer, the trucker whistled. From the gas station, 2 more truckers stepped forward. Big, rough-looking, veterans of the road, and they weren't alone. More drivers started appearing, guys who had been watching from the diner, from their own rigs, from the shadows. Some cracked their knuckles, others just stood there, arms crossed, shaking their heads. A brotherhood. The trucker smirked. "We look out for our own." The gang leader's face drained of color. It wasn't just one guy they had messed with. It was an entire army of truckers, and they had just sealed their fate. The leader knew what was coming next, because on the highway, there were rules, and these thugs, they had just broken every single one. The truck stop was dead silent except for the distant hum of idling engines. The gang, once so confident, was now surrounded, a pack of jackals who had wandered straight into a den of lions. The trucker let go of the gang leader, watching as he stumbled backward, hands shaking. The once arrogant thug looked around, his breath coming in short gasps. His men were either unconscious, limping away, or frozen in place, realizing just how badly they had miscalculated. The trucker took a slow step forward, his steel-toed boots crunching against the pavement. "You thought we were easy prey," he said, his voice calm but firm. "That truckers were just loners, nobodies. But out here, on the road?" He glanced at the other truckers around him, men who had faced the same dangers, seen the same threats, and had each other's backs. "We take care of our own." One of the gang members, a younger kid, maybe barely out of his teens, dropped his weapon and took a step back. His hands trembled. His eyes darted between the truckers and his so-called brothers. The trucker noticed. "You don't belong here, kid," he muttered. "Get out while you still can." The young man hesitated, then turned and bolted into the night, leaving the rest of his crew to deal with what came next. The trucker turned back to the gang leader, who clutched his ribs, struggling to catch his breath. His cocky attitude was gone, replaced by the sheer understanding that he had just come face to face with something he couldn't control. "You ever try this again?" the trucker said, his tone dark. "And you won't be walking away next time." The gang leader nodded frantically. He had no doubt the trucker meant every word. The trucker turned to his brothers. "Let them go," he said simply. There were a few grumbles, but in the end, the other truckers stepped back. They had made their point, loud and clear. The gang, what was left of them, staggered to their feet and ran, disappearing into the desert. The trucker watched them go, then sighed, rolling his shoulders. He had seen enough violence in his lifetime. Another trucker, a big guy with a beard down to his chest, clapped him on the back. "That was one hell of a move, brother," he said. The trucker chuckled, shaking his head. Just another day on the road. As the rest of the truckers laughed and began to head back to their rigs, the trucker took a moment to himself, looking out at the horizon, at the road ahead. He had walked away from war years ago, thinking he could just be a regular man, a driver, a guy making a living. But the truth was, some fights come looking for you. And when they do, you don't back down. Because out here, on the highway, truckers are more than just men behind the wheel. They're brothers, fighters, survivors. And anyone who thinks otherwise, they learn the hard way.